Hey everybody, and welcome to Wednesday evening here where we are going to play around with Fusion 360. Just gonna make sure here, it looks like we are live. That is absolutely awesome. It's always a little tricky, you're sitting a second waiting. This is what on Facebook is our absolute beginner series. What that means is we're dialing back, and any question you have, you can put in the question area in the live stream here. We'll stop. We'll make sure we answer them. This is just you and me. There's no issues. No question is too stupid in here. I can see Isaac is here. I can see Vid is here. Absolutely appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy day to join here on a Wednesday evening. I am sitting in upstate New York. It is like a little bit after 8, so I opened a cold one. Depending on wherever you are, you might want one too. All right, so Darren is here. That's awesome. So like I said, absolute beginner. This is just you and I. We get an opportunity to just answer any question there is. We're going to go slow, not going too fast, not doing too many crazy things. What we're going to model today or tonight is I found this old magnifying glass in my toolbox, and man, this thing I've been through a lot. I actually got it when I was a young kid, but it's been in my toolbox ever since. I thought that would be an interesting one to kind of model up inside of Fusion 360, and I will show you, if you watch the other absolute beginner, then I'll show you some new tricks today. But it's going to be, again, we'll take the time to go through it. So, Samuel is here. Enough talking. Let's get going here. So, let's get over to Fusion. Now, I'll start out with how Fusion is initially when you're starting out, if you have never touched Fusion before. There's two things that I do before I do anything else with Fusion. Just two things. It's the only settings I do. See, Pete is here. Good to see you, Pete. Two things. I go up on this view cube up here and I right click on it and I change orthographics to perspective with auto faces. So click on that, right click, change that to perspective with auto faces. The other thing I like to do is I go down here and I'll turn the layout grid off. That is the two only things that I change from a, literally taking Fusion out of the box. See, James is here. Good to see you, James. So we're going to start a modeling here. Now, again, just want to make sure that I show. We're going to model up this magnifying glass that I have here in my hand. Should be fun. And we're going to throw it through the rendering at the end, just so you have something that looks kind of cool. Maybe you can show to your friends or your wife or whoever else you want to impress with your Fusion skills. All right, so I'm going to start out. The only thing we have when we're starting out inside of Fusion is always important to remember. We always start with a 2D sketch and we extrude that into 3D space. There's only two places you can sketch. It's either on a face or on a plane. Now, we don't have any faces on our screen yet because we haven't modeled anything. So we have the origin up here. We can turn around with the light bulb. Gives us kind of like the three planes showing up here. So when we start out our first sketch, it will always be on a plane because, well, hey man, we don't have a face yet. So I'm going to go up here and say I want to start a new sketch, create a new sketch. So that's going to be a 2D sketch. And you can choose what face you want to select here. Hey, Gary, good to see you. I'm going to select the top face here. You can kind of like see that it resembles with the view cube. The only reason that I'm doing this right now is because, like I said, I want to throw it into the render environment, and just to help myself, I kind of like want the magnifying glass that we're going to model up here to kind of like lay flat on the surface or on the ground. So I clicked create new sketch. I'm going to click here, and it will kind of like rotate up to that view, and we can see we're inside of a sketch because you can see that over here on the sketch palette, right? Now, the first thing we're going to talk a little bit about when we're looking at this magnifying glass is where should we start our design on this part here. And that is, really one of those tricky parts, because I think when you're new, you're always trying to figure out, the right way. And I keep on saying in my YouTube live streams, there is no right way. But just to make it a little bit easier on ourselves, I like to find out what is the most important thing of my model, and that's where I start. So for this magnifying glass, I'm holding it here because the handle is a little loose. It's very old. On the magnifying glass, we can clearly agree that this glass thing is the most important. So let's start with the circle, and then we do the handle afterwards. So I'm going to start over here in Fusion by creating a circle. So I'm going to hit C for circle, and I'm just going to sketch a circle out here. Now, we're going to do this in metric. Doesn't really matter whatever we do. So I'm going to make this one 80 millimeters in diameter, and I'm just going to hit enter. Hit enter twice, and you will see we get a circle here. Now, this circle is fully constrained because I started my circle right in the origin, right in the center, right there. I drew it right in the center. That was where I clicked first, and there is our circle. We typed in the 80 millimeters. Now, most of the times we sketch one thing, and many times that's what we start extruding. But what I actually want to do first here is I actually want to do this like a little metal or chrome rim going around. So I'm going to start out with that one. So I'm actually going to I could create another circle in here. I could hit C for circle, start another circle in here right in the ordinary. We could sketch this one out, and then we could make that whatever distance we want. But I'm going to hit escape to get out of this. There's another tool. We can actually offset this circle. So I'm going to hit O for offset and select that circle. And when I do that, you can see here I can grab this little thing and kind of like offset an edge in. So I'm going to make this one minus 1 millimeter. Okay, so now I kind of like got two circles. Now you can see that they both have kind of like this internal color. They can be extruded. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do that by hitting Q for press pull. And I'm going to zoom in by rolling my middle mouse button here on my mouse. I'm going to make sure that I only select the outer edge. Make sure I don't select the inner edge, because then I'm going to extrude the whole thing. I just want that little ring. And if we start pulling in it, we can see here we kind of get that outer ring. Now I'm going to leave it at 12 millimeters thick. But I want to show you, when we're starting out inside of Fusion, we have this tendency to just want to rush and get something on the screen. But be aware of there's a lot of options over in these menus over here. And one of the ones we can use is if you hit the direction here, there's symmetry. What really just means when I click on that we are kind of like having symmetry going both sides. So it's kind of like extruding on both sides. What actually means right now it's 12 by 12. But there's a little box over here where I can do half length or full length. So if I click full length, you will see that it snaps back to 12. So by hitting symmetry, what have I really done? Let me hit OK. Hold down Shift and middle mouse button so I can rotate around. What I did was I placed that origin right in the center of that ring instead of right down on the bottom where I started my sketch. Okay? So be aware of that little trick in the end. You can see over here we're getting the history down here. Hey, David is here. Good to see you, David. So if you ever want to go in and change things in here, you can just right click. So if we right click on this feature right here, we can go up and say edit feature. We can go back in here again. You can see we had it on symmetry versus just one side, what is the default. So we just made sure that that plane is now right in the center. Shift middle mouse button will let you rotate around like that. Okay, so that is really that. Now the next thing I want to do while we're at this is kind of like our metal ring, is I want to do the glass that is inside of this. Now, there's different ways you can do that. I want to show you a couple of tricks here. Now, you already know this. On a magnifying glass, normally the glass is curved. That's what makes it magnifying. In this case here, because this is a practice for fusion, I'm just going to make it flat, just between you and I. Now, what I want to show you is that I'm going to start a new sketch right on the same plane. I'm going to go up and hit New, Create New Sketch. I'm going to select that plane there. It's going to go normal to. I could start sketching another circle out, hitting C for circle, starting in the center. I could start sketching out one that kind of like ends up on the same edge that we already have, but hit Escape. We can also just borrow this edge or steal this edge. And we do that by what is called projecting it. Projecting an edge just means we're kind of like copying it. So hit P for project on your keyboard and select that inner edge, and we have borrowed that edge. I'm going to hit OK, hold Shift middle mouse button, and you can see how I'm ending up with a little purple ring right in there. So we kind of like borrowed that upper edge down to that plane. Another good little tip to have here. Now I'm going to extrude that, so I'm going to hit Q again, select that inner face, and I'm going to go ahead and also make this symmetrical. Click this symmetrical here, and I'm going to make this, again, I'm going to have the whole length, type in here, I'm going to make this 6 millimeters thick. So hold down Shift middle mouse button, kind of like just making a disc in here that is 6 millimeters overall thick. So I made the whole outer ring, I made that one 12, so there's 3 and 3 down here on the bottom. Again, I'm holding middle mouse button and Shift to kind of like rotate it around. Now, of course, this is going to be see-through, right? We're going to be able to see through this at some point, but I'm going to wait with that right now. Let's get in, we'll do the rendering in the end, and then you get to see something that looks pretty cool. I can see that John also joined us. Good to see you guys. We've got 17 people here. Really appreciate it, guys. Again, any question you have as we are going through this, throw them in the chat, and I will absolutely stop what I'm doing and answer them. That's the idea here. Go a little bit slower pace, no rush. If we went too fast, let's rewind. Good Canadian beer on a Wednesday evening. Snow outside. Okay, so this portion we have right here, the outer metal ring and the glass that still looks like nothing, but we will. It's kind of like two features, and if you look down in the feature tree, you'll see that we have the first sketch, was outer ring, had the extrusion for the outer ring. We had the next sketch for the inside. That was where we kind of like borrowed that edge, and then we extruded up that thickness right there. So for right now, until we're getting into the render space, I'm really done with the upper edge. That was pretty easy, right? So let's go ahead and do the handle here. All right, so for that, I am actually going to use one of my favorite commands sitting right up here. It's an offset plane. I'm going to offset one of these planes so I can start my sketch for the handle for this. To do that, I hit the offset plane here and I select one of these faces. I'm going to select this face. And again, whenever you get an arrow, I always just grab the arrow and drag it a little bit, and then you can always type in your length here. Now the length, let's go back to the webcam here. The length, so that plane was actually sitting right in the center of, right here in the center, and then I'm gonna get it all the way out to the end out here. Now, what I did before we did this, I cheated. I kind of wrote down on a paper kind of sketch here the dimensions, so I don't have to remember all of them. See how bad my handwriting is right there. So what we have 16 for a little portion. That's like that little silver portion right there. Wow, I get ugly when I'm zoomed up here. Right there, that's 16. 83 is what the length of the black handle is in here. So what I'm going to do, because I am lazy, is I'm actually going to do all that math right in here. So I know that I drew the outer edge 80, so that would be 40 radius. Okay, so that's going to bring us right to the edge of that outer ring, plus the 16, which is this silver transition section, and then the overall length of the handle is 83, right? So I can type all that in up in here or down here, and we can hit okay, just like that. Okay. All right, John here. Hey, Buffalo, man. Yep. Are we done with all the snow? I don't know if we're done with all the snow, John. I'll tell you what, I have used my snowblower more the last 3 days than I did all last year. So that's kind of funny. And the snow came Tuesday, Monday. Okay, so I'm just going to, again, shift middle mouse button, rotate around. So now you can kind of like see how we have that plane sitting out there in space that we can now start sketching on it. So I'm going to go up and create a new sketch and select that plane. It's going to kind of like go normal to up here, and I'm going to hit another C for circle to do the diameter of the handle, and I'm going to snap into the origin and start drawing out that diameter for the handle. Now the diameter is 14. Hit enter, and I'm just going to again shift middle mouse button so you can see how I kind of got that sketch sitting out there in space. Now I can go ahead and I can make that press pull. So I'm going to hit Q and select that ring. And again, you get the arrow. You can kind of like start pulling it. Now I'm just going to pull this one up the length of the wooden black handle. What was 83? Whoops, minus 83. That is kind of important. Plus, minus, there we go. That direction, that's where we want it. And I'm going to hit OK. And then we kind of have that handle right there, right? Now, if you have watched some of the live streams we do on YouTube, you have now just realized that we, up here, up at the left, we now have two bodies inside of this component here. So that is kind of interesting. So now, so we have the black handle. We're going to color everything when we get in the rendering environment and make glass and all that for our magnifying glass. So what we got now, rotate a little bit. What we got is we now got the round ring. We got the glass that is not glass yet. And then we got this black handle. It's actually made out of wood, but it's a black, painted black with a lot of aluminum residue on it for some reason. So now what we got to do is this little tricky transition right here. Now, I want to show you a new command that we haven't done on this live stream yet, and that is the command called Revolve. It's sitting right up here under the create, and it's really great for round stuff. So let me show you. I'm going to open up a new sketch, create a new sketch, and I'm going to select that. We can select that plane right here, but you can see how this highlights, this doesn't highlight. There's a couple of tricks to this. See, I can't select it because the top of our glass is kind of like in the way. Now you can either move over to the origin over here and hit the little arrow so it kind of like blows out here, and then you can hover over and find it. You can see it's the XZ, and I could select over here and I could get it. So I'm going to choose to do that. So I'm going to click there. It's going to go normal to. And now you can kind of see how we're looking top down on this edge here. So to do this transition, I actually want to create another line that I can revolve around. So I'm going to click L on line. I could also click up here, but I'm going to click L on line, and I'm just going to snap this one into the origin and drag that line down. Just make sure that it is vertical down here. So that is a vertical line right here. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can kind of do this transition. The easiest one would probably just be, while we're still in the line tool, look at my cursor. You see how it still has the line on it there? And if I select this edge here and just move up, maybe we went up in an angle a little bit, and just make sure that I intersected that edge up there. As soon as I click there, see how we get like that change in color right in here. That tells us that we could go ahead and we could use that revolve. So let me just show you that. So I'm going to go up to create, hit revolve, and the middle mouse button to zoom in. And the revolve command asks for a profile. That would be that area right there. We can click on that, turns blue. And then it looks for an axis to revolve around. Click axis, select that line that I created off from the center point, and boom, we get kind of like a cone shape. Now it is red. The reason that this is red is because whenever Fusion sees that it's intersecting other solids, it goes into a cut. But again, slowing down a little bit when you're new and going over here and look at the menus, we will see over here that it's set to a cut. If I go down and hit join, instead it's going to make a transition in an angle. So let me just hit OK so we can take a look at it. And now you will see that we kind of like got a nice blend between the handle and the section here. And also notice that we now went from 2 bodies down to 1 because we connected these two. And this, if I scroll out, this is actually a nice little transition between this. Not too bad for a transition between the two. Could definitely go. If you're happy with that, leave it there. But I'm not happy with that. Well, mainly because we just started, right? Hey, we see we got Garrett here. Patrick joined. Good to see you guys. Hope that you are ready for a little bit of absolute beginner fusion. That's what this is about. Any questions you have, throw them in the chat. This is the place where we will stop and answer any of those. All right. So far, we've just been talking about snow blowers. Just because John and I are from Buffalo and we get a lot of snow. Know where David is at. David, where are you located at? You see you got a snow blower too, so you must get some snow. Got Ron in here too. Really appreciate it. So to go back to this, the transition in here for the cone is pretty good, but I think we can do better. So I can go back into the sketch and I can click on that sketch and we can right click and we can hit edit sketch. And that will bring us right back to where we were before. Now, there was one thing I didn't do. You see how this line is blue? We never want blue lines. And the reason we don't want blue lines is because, look at this, it can actually be moved. So just like this, I go completely, if you don't fully define your sketches, I go completely change this sketch. And this would be a terrible connection between these two. It will fall right off. So you always want to make sure. So again, I'm going to go down to the sketch, right click and hit edit. You always want to make sure that you fully define these sketches. Now, like I said, I want to make a better transition than just a cone here. So I'm just going to select the line and hit delete on my keyboard, and it's gone. All right. Now, I want this to be a little bit more aesthetic looking, maybe. So I'm going to go up here and use one of my favorite arc tools. I'm going to go up to sketch, drop down, and I'm going to select the 3-point arc. Now, the 3-point arc is easy as soon as you know in what order you should select stuff. So if I select 3-point arc, the trick is select the 2 endpoints and then you select the arc you want. So I'm going to make sure I snap into that little endpoint right there. Select another endpoint right around over here. And then when I move it, you see how I get a little arc right there? So that was kind of neat. I'll use it again. Select that same endpoint, move over a little bit, maybe make a little, kind of like a little bubble on there. That might be kind of cool. I don't know. You tell me. And then maybe just we go back to the line, hit alpha line, and kind of like go up here and snap into that corner. Now, so like I said, we need to fully define everything in here. And the way we do that is by either these constraints or also called relationships over here, or dimensions. All right, John, freezing here in North New Jersey. Yes, it's cold, isn't it? I think it was like 18 degrees outside today. So I'm going to put some dimensions on here. So hit D for dimension. I can see here Dave talking about the spline might be better. Yeah, possibly. It really depends on what you're trying to do, right? Because I mean, a spline might give you a little bit more control points. You can make more swoopy surfaces. But you know, from a manufacturing standpoint, if you had to make the tool for this, many times you actually would rather have it lines and arcs. That's many times what you're using for that. So yeah, David, I don't disagree with you, but you know, we're gonna do it this way this time. So I'm gonna click this line, and I'm gonna place a an angle here. So I don't know, maybe make it 12. Hit enter on that. We probably also want to do kind of like a distance from here to kind of like this endpoint right here. And I'm just making these numbers up. 2.5, just to get something close. Maybe a radius here, 1.5. And this is really what you have to do when you're working with this kind of stuff, that you are placing these type of dimensions to make sure that we are fully defining this sketch. Now this arc here might actually come from this intersection down here. Let's make it 8.5. And you see how things start turning black as we're going along. I might also put a radius here at 8.5. Now the last thing I need on this one is the center location. You will see that the center location is actually sitting, the center point is sitting right there. You could possibly go in here and make that a coincident. So select this one and make it coincident to this edge here. No, don't want to do that. That would over constrain the sketch. Let's see here. Where can we move it to? So you now, I want to keep, yeah, I want to definitely keep that kind of grow there. Okay, so I'm going to dimension it. There. So make it a 1.5. If I had brought it down there, I would have blown up the circle, that's why. And that there makes it fully defined. You see how it turned fully black. So now, I'm going to stop the sketch. And because what the selection we had in the constraint here before, you will now see that we get that transition right there. Because we had already selected the revolve. But let me just go back here. I'm going to delete the revolve just for a second. And I'm going to show the sketch again just so you can see it. So here was our kind of our profile. So let's go in and do the revolve one more time. So revolve always looks for two things. It looks for a profile, and then it looks for the axis. What was that round one? Again, it turns red because it sees intersecting materials it wants to cut. We're going to change that to join, and then click that. Hide the sketch again over here in the light bulb. Normally we wouldn't have to do that, and then we kind of have that transition there. The last thing I want to do to this is I kind of like want to round this edge, so we can use a fillet for that. Hit fillet and click over here on the edge and maybe make that, I don't know, 3 might hit OK, and we get a nice fillet right there. Okay, I'm going to turn the origin off. So here is where kind of like the hand of this magnifying glass is. Now, of course, it looks freaking gray and boring, so we're going to have to do something with that. Do you see this here? Is there a quick way to know which property needs dimensioning? Really not. The trick, if I go back into that sketch, right click and edit sketch. You know what the trick is? That if let's say I delete this 3.8 right here, so I'm just going to select it, hit delete, and you see that the circle turns blue. The only really way to do anything is to grab, hold down your left mouse button over a point and maybe try to move it. And of course I can't do it on this one here. Let me delete this dimension too. So you can see here that I can move this by dragging this, can give you an idea about what I want to do. I'm going to do Control Z to undo those dimensions back. Same thing, if I go up and delete this 2.5 up here, hit delete, see this line is now blue. The trick is really just to grab a point, hold down your left mouse button and start moving your mouse, and it will kind of give you an idea, right, that, oh, that thing is moving along, that adds, maybe I need to put a dimension on that. That is really the only way there is, because there's multiple ways that you could fully define it. So that's why that is that. That's a good question though. All right. Jay, good to see you, Jay. I'm gonna take a sip of my beer here. All right, comment on my bodies versus component video. That's the one that is up on YouTube. Is there a way to move things from one component to another component? Well, kind of. I should probably do a live stream on this where I kind of like dig a little bit deeper. You can create sub components or kind of sub assemblies. So what happens when you're working inside an assembly, this is not an assembly, when we have multiple components, is that you can kind of like change the fish eye or the block next to it, whatever component you're in. And what sometimes happens to me too, is that you model something up in the wrong component and you're like, man, I should have it down here. You can do certain tricks sometimes you can like control drag down. The problem is, of course, that if I'm in component 1 and I use that plane in component 1 to sketch on, now I want it to be to the plane in another component, and that could take some finagling. So you really gotta kind of slow down a little bit and make sure that you don't get into those habits. But it's a good topic. It is on my list to do a live stream on how to handle that, because it happens to me too. But it's one of the things to be really paying attention to when you're working in components, is that you're in the right component when you're sketching. All right, so this is all cool. We got this sketched up. We have our tree down here. We could kind of like follow through. So we started out by creating the outer ring, and then we extruded up the flat glass. It doesn't look like glass. We created that offset plane, right? Remember that plane out there? We sketched a circle on that. Turn the sketches on here. Right? We sketched a circle on that. That then gave us an opportunity to extrude out the handle, and then we kind of sketched out that funky little transition right there that we then revolved out. Got a little neat one there, and then in the end I put a fillet on here. You might want to put fillets other places too, but I think for trying to fix this old magnifying glass that I got many years ago, I think that is somewhat close enough. So what I wanted to do here in the end was I wanted to put it inside of the render workspace. And the reason I wanted to do that is because some of the things we are modeling here we don't really want to do, but this is kind of neat and it could be interesting to see. And I think it would be cool for you to kind of like see how you do that if you haven't played with that. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to hit save and call it whatever you want. Give it a name, right? Magnifying glass. I can't spell magnifying. And then let's go over to the render workspace here. So the drop down, go over to the render workspace, and we will see that our screen changes. Now, it maybe doesn't look too exciting from the beginning, but that's kind of like, okay. We're going to work from the left to the right here. So don't get too, like, this is not like learning all the difficult things inside of our modeling space. This is a lot easier if you've never been in here. So we're going to start with the beach ball, what is appearances. So when I click on that, and our appearances opens up here. Now by default, starting from the top, it want to apply the different kind of materials we're going to apply here on bodies and components. Now this here we have here is one body. It means if I drag something on here, the whole thing would kind of change. And I normally, it's easier to actually do faces. I'm going to click on faces. So now we're just applying to each face here. Everything is steel by default in Fusion. We don't want to use that. Let's start with what we actually might want to do with the ring here. But we will see down here, we have a lot of different categories down here. We can start looking at those. So if we start the same way we model everything up, might be easiest. Let's start with the outer ring. Click metal, aluminum, bronze, whatever. And you know what? This is where you really get to play around. Like I'm going to do it like close to what we probably would have seen in real life, but don't, play around with it, make it fun. So I'm going to click chrome, and you will see that there's a couple of different types in here. Now, anytime you see that there is a arrow next to one of them, it's not downloaded with Fusion, but if you click the little arrow, in like 2 seconds, it is downloaded now. The arrow goes away. And again, I made sure up here that I have faces selected, and I can now click and I can drag that over on this face here. Now when I do that, you see that we don't really see anything right now. What can be a little annoying, like we're like, did I apply it, or did it go on there, or didn't it go on there? There's a couple of different ways that we can see this. One thing we can do is we can go up here. There's one called in-canvas render. If I click on that, Fusion will actually start to kind of like render or pixelate this. You can kind of like see that it gets a little grainy. Now, if you hit the little gear icon next to it, you will see that there's an advanced option and there's a fast option. And it makes it maybe did stop. All right, if you lost the screen, I'm sorry. I'll turn the on-canvas render off. Now it looks like it's back to where I was. If I rotate the model here, see if my screen's gonna kind of like, it should hopefully update with that. So I turned that in-canvas rendering off. All right, looks like we're caught up. I'm back in the settings screen over here, and so this is where you could kind of like change those different environments. You can turn the in-canvas rendering off, on and off, to see the different appearances. What was the beach ball? I'm just gonna move on here now with I'm gonna go now with the appearances. Carrie, you got Ash. Carrie, are you in California by any chance? So what I'm going to do is, so we applied the chrome to this outer ring, but actually when I did the in-canvas render, I don't know if you saw it, that it had some very bad reflection, a lot of reflection. So I actually probably want to change that. Instead of doing chrome, I actually want to do some kind of a steel, and satin might actually work where we were before. So I could actually just, right click on this and unassign and delete it, so it's back to the original. So I'm not going to really worry about this ring. But let's go ahead and do the glass. So I'm going to roll up here, click glass, and you'll see there's different types of glass. I'm going to hit the color density, and you'll see you can do blue and different types. So this is definitely something to kind of like play around with in here. You also got like smooth glass for window, blue, green, red, clear. So we probably want a clear glass. I'm going to take that, and again, I'm going to make sure I'm on faces up here. So drag that up to this face, and you will actually see that we can actually see right through right here in the center. I'm going to spin the model around, and I can select that bottom face too, so I make sure that I get that on both faces. Now you can actually see, we can kind of see through here, what is kind of neat. For the handle, I'm going to select black because that's what the handle on my my magnifying glass. I'm just going to select the paint and glossy and just black. Now remember, I have it on faces, so it's only going to apply to this face. So I have to make sure that I also selected, drag it on to this face and to this face here. Now, see how it's sitting up in space. And many times when you're doing this kind of rendering, you actually cheat a little bit. But if I hit the close here and go back into appearance, you can actually flatten it. So I click the little light up here. We can actually flatten it, and then that will bring it flat to the ground. So again, if I spin it around, you'll see that now it's laying, well, maybe show a little bit, but supposed to be flat on the ground right there. Now again, that in-canvas render is great for you to quickly see what is going on in here quickly. But the final render, you actually hit the coffee or the teapot over here to get the final render. So the in-canvas is just to give you an idea what you kind of want. If you hit the render button over here, you get some options to put in the dimensions for the picture. You can either do it locally on your computer, or you can send it up in the cloud and get it rendered up there. That does cost you some credits. You do have credits though, so you can use those. Now let me just show you. I actually did do this before because I want to use this for a thumbnail for this video. So I actually did already render this out. So let me show you how it will look the way we have it right there. So that there is a rendered out image on the best setting that is there, and it takes about I don't know 5 minutes or so to render this picture out here. So looks pretty neat, right? Like at least something to maybe show off to friends or family or something like that. I would definitely. I'm sorry I couldn't show this rendering environment a little bit better on these live streams. It seems like it's really just killing the stream here. But hopefully, when you're looking at this image, that makes you kind of like see what you kind of like can do with these renders. All right, so let's see here. Garrett, missed the snow here in the UK. Yeah, we have an office in Birmingham, and I was talking to one of my colleagues there, and yeah, they were pretty. There was a lot of snow that came out of the UK, for sure. Dave is asking, is there a GPU card that is recommended? So I always say that I am not a computer geek, so you should probably never ever take the biggest advice from me when it comes to to computers. What you can do is you can email me. My email should be in here in the live stream, and I will send you the system requirements for Fusion. They're not very high. The reason that you don't see it here is simply because of the live streaming. It's not because computer power. And especially if you're doing, if you do the rendering on the cloud, then it doesn't take any on your computer whatsoever. But I think this image here, without really doing anything other than what I showed you and then hit the final render, that looks pretty sweet, right? I think that's a pretty decent rendered out image. Definitely a way to kind of like show, we can see that this, I think we can see this is a magnifying glass. All right. So with that, let's just go back in Open Fusion here. Let me go back to the model environment, and you will see that the appearances do come back over to the model when we are done with it. So we do have the black, so they stay on from the rendering environment. The glass actually kind of like reflects into into the rim here, so that's why we kind of like got this white ring around it. But I really hope that this was useful. Trying to slow it down a little bit, making it not too fast paced, as I know that sometimes when I do the live streams on the YouTube channel, then it goes a little bit faster. Any questions you have, make sure you throw them in the comments area down there. Again, I'm a little bit sorry that I couldn't show you the whole rendering click by click, but I think you get I'm sure you get the picture. All right, guys, I hope that's good for a Wednesday evening here with a little bit of Fusion, absolute beginner. Send me an email if there's any topics you would like to get covered, any specific parts you maybe have. Love to do them. If not doing them here, then I'll do them on the live stream on the YouTube channel up there too. So, with that, hope that this was useful. Hope you have an awesome day. Hope that wherever you are, that you don't get too much snow, or you can handle it. And, if I don't see you on the YouTube channel, then be back next Wednesday for another Absolute Beginners for Fusion 360. Really appreciate you taking the time. Hope you guys have an awesome night. Take care, guys.